have a taste of a civil world and a more primitive world, if you could say that. I come from the rurals, but I've had an honor to go to school. And I come from a spiritual perspective of how we're going to achieve, or rather how the writers who are already doing their work are going to achieve the goal that we want to achieve by embracing the impact of what we are complaining about. We are here communicating because of English. Yes, there is a lot that we're complaining about, but in trying to kill us, they gave us a breath to express ourselves. So it takes me to Swahili or any other language that going forward, we can substitute English for a like, Messi for Ronaldo. I believe that we need an African language that is going to unite all of us, the very same way English or French or Portuguese united us. And then in accessing the past, my brother from Botswana, 1885, you said, there is a system that is still existing as we speak of how we can access the past, our ancestral realm. There are people within us, in our cities, in our countries, who speak to our ancestors daily. They receive instructions on how to kill people. They receive instructions about what's to come. We have that and we're embracing it, and our cultures and our countries are embracing traditional healers. And there's a system in place to make sure that they apply for certificates to show that they've gone through initiation. And we are not going to allow the other narrative to take root, whereas we know the other narratives that are indeed abiding by the law. Healing is not as random as people claim that it's fake, as demonic. However, we're embracing the Western culture as well. There are certain forms of illnesses that would need you to go to a scan, but others need to be treated spiritually, which goes to our roots. You talked of, you don't know how African children don't know how to approach their uncle's aunt or something like that. And the best way to achieve that is to each of us write our stories in our native and then to substitute them to English, which will be Swahili in the future. I'm looking forward to a broader African language that will take the place of English, because as far as we don't do that, English is still going to play an important role the way it's doing now. So let's find a way to substitute English and be grateful for what it's done for us. We are using the same weapon, but with a different venom. Thank you.
Thank you. I see a hand there, and then after you will have the, it will be 1, 2, 3. Then we'll take another round.
I don't think this is a question. I feel like it's a compliment, it's an addition. It's so funny that I hear most of us in the room saying we didn't read any African written material, because I feel like firstly I watched Nothing But the Truth, that was played by John Kani. I read books by Andy Patton. He's from Africa. Yes, he's white, but he's from Africa. Read books by Zex Nda. I was very inspired by Zex Nda. Zanemvula Nda. I think you guys know it. And from a very young age, I was already reading African material, written material, because I always wanted to know what is it that we as Africans have, that white people wanted so much to take. So I think for a time, I don't know if anyone has ever had this feeling. For some time, I was racist to the white people. I hated them. I hated any white person here, because I was like, these people did this to us, watching that movie called 12 Years a Slave. You will hate white people after watching that movie. And then I grew that development of wanting to read more from black people, black written material, Things Fall Apart, and watching movies that are black owned and black produced, you understand? And I think that also, I will add on, it added to my mental health of wanting to be more African and wanting to know more about what happened to us as a people. And then Black Panther came out. Jesus Christ. And so what I am just saying is, I feel like the privilege I had of loving reading gave me a way to read material from Africa, and then I actually wanted more Black people, who wrote. And I actually formed a group. I remember 2 years ago, I formed a group where I was wanting local authors only. I just wanted a local directorship only, where all local people can come, encourage each other to keep on writing. I found books in here in Alliance Française by our own people, that they wrote. Oh, there's this book called How We Bury Puso. And I was like, these books are here. We don't even know about them. When you enter into state library, our very state library, 90% of the books are in there, English people, white people. There's a section that just has Black written material, but it's only talking about half of what they did to us culturally. It's hiding it. I remember a time when I was reading out to these people from Croatia. They came in Lesotho. They came into a restaurant where I was at that time. So I was like, oh, white people, let me. And then I read to them about our history. Trust you me, when I turned into the 4th or the 5th page, I was like, oh shit. I, as a Mosotho, was like, no, I'm not reading this to these people. I am telling them what I know. I'm giving them what I know. Because even the directions that were given in that book were wrong. Directions, simple directions to a simple place. So I honor, and I am so inspired, and I'm always hyped when it comes to such topics like this, because there was really a time where I was asking myself, how more can we also write about it? How more can we also write about what these people took from us, and how we can go forward with our own stories, If you read Zexinda's The Heart of Readiness, trust you me, you will feel like you want to write about what white people did into our land, into our lands as Africans, entire, not just one nation. So I'm so grateful for this. The power of African narrative in shaping identity and creativity. It's a big topic.
First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of this conference for what they have done. I wish we could, maybe it's once a year, I guess, we should be twice or even so that it reaches the corners of our country. Some of us just came across it by chance. I was in a car listening to a certain radio, this thing. So I just came running here because it rang a bell into my Pan-African mind. So we are very grateful for this thing. I wish, if it is possible, please look into that, whether you can do it twice or thrice a year before you go to other countries. It's long overdue. It's long overdue. That's the first point. My second point is, as we sit here, I think we are a microcosm of the African community. Yeah. Whatever we are struggling with as writers, it's exactly what our African society is struggling with. Yeah. It's just that maybe they haven't found a way of expressing it or articulating it, or something like that. But now that, as writers, we seem to have a light, a torch, that maybe things went wrong here. I think it is upon our shoulders. It is our duty to go to all areas of concern and conscientize our brothers that here is a problem. I want to say this, ladies and gentlemen. Colonialism was a thorough project.
Yeah.
It was very thorough. It does, in other words, it covered every aspect of our life, even the ones that we are not even aware of. Agric, religion, education, politics, economics, you name it. Even now as we sit here, we are all Africans. But what language are we using to communicate with each other? You see? From Nigeria, from South Africa, Botswana, we can't communicate in one African language. You see, we are still embedded in the tentacles of the so-called gone colonialism. They are still colonizing from Britain, still running this country. So it is our duty as writers who are conscientized to conscientize our brothers politically, agriculturally, politically, religiously, that is we are saying, in all, so our rights, they should address all those factors. I think if we are strategic enough as an organization, maybe we should develop a strategy, a working strategy that our rights, others should address the religious aspect, the philosophical, the political, the commercial, because all these areas were hit hard by the colonialists, and they are still there, they are still with us. So the last point is to, in addressing what the moderator was asking, the question you posed of something wrong with our mentality. Maybe there is. But I'm reminded here of the words spoken by this guy. It's a reggae artist from Jamaica. It's not from Mali, but I'll recall the guy. Just passed away, I think, recently. He says, he's addressing your concern that he's saying, I quote him, he's saying, I'm lucky that I'm not educated. For if I were, I would be very stupid. End of quote. I mean, this is a typical African man who is aware of what the colonial education has done to us. You see? So he puts it in those precise words, saying, I'm lucky that I'm not colonially educated. For if I were, I would be thoroughly stupid. I don't want to say that is where we are. I don't want to say that, but really, I wonder who among us who still consider himself educated under these circumstances, where you have been stripped of all your Africanness, and you remain with you remain with all these foreign things stuffed into your mind. You go along dressed, acting like you think God is helping such a. He created you this way. You come along suddenly or something else. You don't know whether you're European or African or confused with money or something. So, ladies and gentlemen, answering your question, is there anything wrong with our minds as Africans? I think the African Writers Association or Society of Conference is trying to answer that. So the starting point is, as I said, colonialism was very thorough. That should be our starting point. We should acknowledge that it was very thorough. And the only thing that's now that they have gone wherever they came from, that the colonialism has stopped. No, it is at an advanced level now. So as writers now, we have to be aware of those things so that we become strategic in our approach. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us remember to keep it brief so that we allow just a number of us to comment. So far, we've only had comments. I think we had another said, and then we will follow. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I mean, I'm wondering what victory would look like for us as Africans, because, you know, we are saying true Africans. What is a true African? I'm just gonna ask that because now I just recently read a book by Chinua Achebe. Okay, that. So God, it's the arrow of God. So after reading that book, I felt like Africa, like lost a cultural battle, you know, in Africa between European culture and African culture. So I'm just like people that way, you know, serving African gods or something. They ended up migrating to the god of the white man because, you know, this one, the white man, when we say the Arab, that showed that Africa lost that fight. So I'm wondering, does being an African mean going back to, you know, the traditional, yes, and the clothes that we are wearing now, they are, you know, European inspired. So I'm wondering if, does it mean victory for us looks, do we have to wear our traditional attire every day for us to say we are not fully Africans?
Yeah, that's a good question. Elizabeth, would you like to answer the question or should we take another one? Well, let us give her a chance and then the panelists will answer. Please have your. Yeah.
I'd like to say I'm grateful that most speakers from the floor touched on colonialism, and I like what Mutante said, that we should first look at the colonial influence, like take it as the root of where things really did go wrong. And he asked a question about not a question per se, but the notion that all black men's issues are psychological. And then I wondered who said that. Like, why is it that all black men's issues are psychological? What did that? Which for me, the answer goes back to colonialism. Like she said, if you read a lot of black narratives, a lot of pre-colonial and somewhere post-colonial literature, you find that a lot of injustice happened when the white man came. But like he said also, we should embrace the fact that it has happened. So now, what is, like he said again, what is going back to being an African me now that these have happened? Because we can't completely go back to what the African man was. And which also brings about the issues of the spiritual rift he spoke about. There's a bigger rift than just in spirituality, the rift in culture, born from the colonial influences, of course. But it has happened. We're now living with it. What do we mean we go back to being an African culture and spiritually? And more especially now, I wouldn't say I'm a feminist, but I do enjoy a lot of feminist work, the likes of Ama Adaidu, the Bessie Hit. We can't deny the fact that, great, we are Africans. There's a lot of richness in African culture, but there are also a lot of wrongs, especially when we look at it in retrospect of us being women. Like there's a lot of African culture that I would say sort of marginalizes women. So now that we are here trying to reclaim our African culture, where does the African woman, what are we going to do about that? Do we go back to us being docile? No. Or do we embrace whatever the colonial narratives, part of it, has given us? I need to know that as well. Because I think I only read one, but I really liked it from that work, Amada Yu's play, Anoa. The way she wrote us back into history, it touches on the transatlantic slave trade. And our protagonist is a girl, Anoa. The way she writes women back into history in that way, while usually when we read history, the African history, which maybe is colonially influenced, but even when we read African history that is outside of the colonial influence, it has this patriarchal view that fails to acknowledge women's part in African culture. So I need, when we're having such talks, we should also acknowledge that women, we are African women. So what do you mean, we're going back to the culture that we know, like it did us wrong. So what, I need to know that as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now we can let our panelists reply.
To answer this question of what does it mean to be victorious and or rather becoming who we are, I'd like to believe she has laid like a really solid foundation for how I was going to answer you, which is it has happened, right? Colonization has happened. We have developed under it. We have created some new cultures under it. It has had its benefits, right? But then those benefits came at the cost of complete cultural erasure, right? And identity. So the idea, at least from how I understand it, is we don't need to repress to reclaim who we are. We don't need to be who we used to be. We need to take the core of what made us solid as human beings, as a culture.
Say that again?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, how do I? Okay, I think we need to reclaim the core of what made us solid as human, or rather as Basotho, as Botswana, as Zimbabweans, as a culture. We need to take the core principles of what made us us, right? Now, this is not to say, because like, say for instance, back then, the way we saw the world, the way we saw progression, the way we saw the society was much more different, because say we need to account for technology, it was way more primitive back then, right? Certain roles fell onto certain people because there was no other way of doing them. So to go back doesn't mean to really redo how we used to live, because that would mean regressing. That would mean living behind, I don't even know how to say this. Living behind, because we're going back, so we're living behind how we're living now. Like, it's important to acknowledge that there are benefits, or are being quite questionable, right? But there are benefits, or rather, there are things we have been accustomed to under what has under colonialism and how we have progressed so far. Obviously, we have found a way to sort of like reclaim who we are, but then it's not really based on our own identity and culture. So what I'd like to say is, to reclaim, or rather to have that identity of who we are, in my understanding, is within where we are right now, let's find those principles, right? Let's find that passion, right? Let's find that the good bits, which were a lot actually, of who we are. And now let's implement that on where we are currently, without erasing where we are. Because the idea is to not regress. The idea is to fully embrace what makes us us. Because it's where we get our pride. It's where, like, and I would like to believe national pride or cultural identity is the cornerstone of why we keep on pushing anyway. Look at the Zulu people, right? They refuse to speak English. They are very proud. And because of that, no one will tell them otherwise. If what they're being told is to some degree not beneficial to them, right? So the idea is the attitude and the principles and the core bits that are good that we should reclaim and implant them in where we are currently. Because to be African again, or rather to be who we are again culturally and nationally speaking, isn't to go back. Then again, I still think I wanna wear my Mingle. You know, that those good things. There are so many good bits of who we are that we have left behind, and which wouldn't harm us in any way to bring back at all. So this is not to say, let's go back to the old gender roles, let's go back to how we used to hunt. No, we don't need to do that, right? We're here now. So the idea is to merge them and go forward in a way that we are not so easily pushed over by other cultures. In a way that we have like this endless pool of energy, of pride, of like this attitude, like, this is me, right? Like, you're not gonna take this away from me. And like, I realized before I really started embracing that I'm so to that, when I was still like, I still try to twist my accent a little bit. I was still shaky in my beliefs. I was not firm at all. I'll hear this and I'll go with that. Yeah, this sounds cool. I'll go with this and it. But then the moment I realized this is me, I'm much more firm in where I stand. And I'm only changed, or whether my ideas or how I see the world is only changed by something that makes sense and mirrors into what I already am and enhances it. Enhances it. Yes, right? So the idea is, we're here now, right? That's the first thing we need to accomplish. This and this happened. Let's heal from that, right? And then let's take out the bad that we think this is. And then we take the good from our past, the good from our culture, the principles, the attitude, especially the attitude, right? And then we incorporate it into who we are now. And then we move forward. Because then, let us not request. By all means, I like what's going on now, you know? I want to fix it, I want to completely destroy it, right? So, let's interpret this and that and become a solid, complete thing as a people. And then we take war to the masses outside.
I think to add on to what you said, it's all starting to sound like a label. You know, like, what is too African, or are we African enough? If we keep seeking that sort of validation from the outside world, it's almost like we're waiting for someone to say, yes, you are African, when that's who you are already. You're born African. So I think the problem is, like, a lot of the media that we consume, they say this is like white music, this is black music. We even segregate things that we are entertained by. So it's not about trying to find a way to get approval from other people to say, yes, you're black, or yes, you're too white, or anything like that. It's about just embracing the way that you are now today, and then advancing forward, as he said. It's not a label. Being African is not a label. It is who you are born to be. You are already an African.
So, to answer the lady's question, this is my attempt, because that was quite a mouthful for a question. I believe it's now a question of our mindset as Africans, because we are in a crisis of race, class, and ethnicity. We are trying to circumvent through this crisis that we have, because like he mentioned, we have a legacy of colonialism, which we are trying to decolonize our mindsets, our way of life, and even our political economy. Whatever is happening, even the way that we are being governed by African governments, it is colonially influenced. So we need to find a way to harness those old indigenous knowledge systems and then put them in our mindset. She mentioned gender roles, female participants in African history. We could write a long list of the Queen Zinga, of the Lubalunda, Queen Lozikei amongst the Nguni people, and most recently there are African women who have been advocating for equality. Talk of the 1960s, Sarah Longwe with the gender and development, women in development, women and development. So this whole phenomena is also influenced largely by European culture, who are the people who say, look here, humans are equal and we should be treated that way. We went to China, Beijing, 1995 for that convention of equality. But then, going back to our African culture, there were gender roles which were largely patriarchal. So now, instead of saying, I am a feminist and this shouldn't be done, how do we find the positive indigenous knowledge systems within our cultures which we can move forward instead of going for an eye, who remain blind at the end of the day. So to put this into perspective, we just need to find the positives. Of course, our culture was not flawless. We have patriarchal societies left, right, and center. What we need to look for is the rare or maybe undocumented cases where good was done. And that is what we can forge forward with. Thank you.
Thank you so Are you going
No,
to?
just a brief summary. I wouldn't speak much, just to make a point on what you said, and then what one of us, the question we asked. There is no much point in addressing over this topic. I want to tell you an experience. If you go to Rome, there's always this popular saying, when you go to Rome, you be like the Romans. When I had my diploma a few years back in Urban University, before I went to university, one of the main things the Romans preserve is the Roman culture. They don't joke with the Greek-Roman thoughts. Thank you so much. It's an embodiment defining the Roman. It's an embodiment defining the Roman culture. That is why, until today, if you go to the library, you can never look for any ancient written works of some of the Greco-Roman philosophers. The works of Plato on statesmanship, the works of Aristotle, the works of Thomas Aquinas, the politics of common good. Today, are the Romans speaking English language? No. Is either you go by the old traditional Latin system or you go by the Italian language. The colonial masters have come and gone. They are still colonizing Africa today. It's just a very realistic debate. But the problem is, how do we move on from now? Pathways, some time ago, Kwame Nkrumah was in President of Africa. Not because he's the most handsome African president, but I'm very glad this topic we are discussing today is very, very broad. To carry research on this topic, one of the greatest books I have read about Africa is The State of Africa by Martin Meredith. I'm telling you, this narrative you are talking about today goes beyond that. Kwame Nkrumah wanted to make Africa a United States, not Addis Ababa, in that OAU conference. And I can remember one of his words was, "The change begins now." At that table, most African leaders that attended that conference clicked against Kwame Nkrumah's ideology. You ask yourself, why? Are the colonial masters seated in that round table when they had their OAU conference in Addis Ababa? See, it's a cyclic problem. It's a cyclic evil. Today, how many tertiary institutions, how many secondary school have history in their curriculum. They don't, these things, we talk about it and, it's supposed to be a picture as if we are far from the reality, so to say. How many schools see the value of history in curriculum?
Not in this country.
Most schools in my country, they have scraped it away. You don't even offer history. Anything outside geography, literature, those choosing subjects, you're on your own. A nation, a society, a people without history has lost their identity. It's one of the capital problems facing Africa today. Without history, how can people be educated? And because we gather like this, the led today are the leaders of tomorrow. If the narrative don't start being corrected now, the snake biting us will continue to bite us.
Yeah.
You come to politics today in most African nations, the ideology is totally changed. The same colonial masters. I traveled to the United Kingdom 2023 to do my master's. For the almost 2 good years, I never had a siren following anybody. You can only hear a siren only when you see the police or medical emergency. In fact, the only time I saw a trial following people, just a few months ago, the Prime Minister of the Great Britain was passing. Just to try off, and the Range Rover. No siren, no noise. He passed. And the colonial master, the people that told us to be carrying 1,000 armored vehicles to hide the man. We live in a society whereby, they have this, we have lost the identity. Lost the history. So that is why there's always this popular saying, when a man begins to create unvarying attachments, he makes those things dangerous. And then before you know it, he's worshiping. We have to go back to history. We have to make, if not even a communal campaign, a personal campaign, let us sustain the mind. It's only history that will bring to our consciousness of our cultural values. That tomorrow, you sitting down today, you become the Prime Minister of Lesotho. If you don't have a recollection to actually know the history, how can you form a change? That is what we are passing through today. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie had more literary ground on issues of feminism because they are reconciling the idea with the African culture. A book written by How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. I don't know how many of us have read this book. So it's a time the colonial master have done us wrong is totally clear. But the issue is, if you look at a high percent, we are holding ourselves where we are. We want to visit a fellow African nation, we go through a hideous visa process. Or come to Great Britain, you don't need visa to travel from England to Albania. You don't need visa to travel from England to Spain. You don't need visa to travel from England to Italy. But those same people who are there, you must go through serious process to visit a fellow African nation. Let's start this campaign. It's a continual life campaign. We should do our best to address this prevailing situation that has eaten people dead into our own lives. People no longer read. How many schools today promote literature? after school, once the book enters back, it ends there. It becomes a story to another day. And then, generations upon generation, we keep on recycling ignorance. We keep on recycling lack of knowledge, lack of identity, lack of cultural values and everything. The British people that brought about this colonialism.
Okay, Brendan, nobody was supposed to be a brief.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a brief one.
Sorry, I've done much. So please, thank you so much, and let's do our best.
Thank you so much. I'm afraid we might have to close now. However, I saw that there are a number of hands. I'm going to take only 3 hands, provided you say only 3 sentences. Yes. This is 1, 2, and then 3. I'm sorry, the rest.
Thank you. Thank you so much for organizing this. I have a question actually. I realized that throughout the discussion, there was a lot of discussing the identity, taking back our narrative as Africans, and exploring how we're going to strategize that in order to own our stories, in order to embrace ourselves as Africans. And this, I believe, fits into freedom, existing as a people and being at peace and happy about it. There's one aspect, though, that I would like to ask about. I don't know if I'm being the devil's advocate. This is economy. How are we going to be free if after telling our stories, we still have to operate in systems that maybe are operated according to European terms? This might be a far-fetched example, but for example, in Lesotho, the last time I checked, which was a long time ago, so I could stand to be corrected, I went to the central bank, and the notes that are printed, the Lesotho notes that are printed, that are circulated, are printed in UK. That was the last time I checked. When we go register, this is hearsay, I stand to be corrected, but when you go register businesses, for example, when they say the system is down, it is the system that to a certain extent actually runs from the UK. There is no system that is built and controlled and entirely operates in Lesotho as is, all right? Now we see a lot of other things. How, as Africans, are we going to take back the narrative of existing and operating as we are while we are still reliant on European systems? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, and then we have Ndande at the back.
Okay, thank you guys. I'm going to be short as I am, but I have a few pointers. It's not a question, it's not a comment. I just want us as creatives, as writers, to introspect. Through this conference, through these workshops, let's introspect. One, what makes us us? Us. Who are we? Because now, I hear we all want to be in between. Already we are in between. Culturally, I know a piece of where I come from. I know a piece of me, who I am. That's why I can't even express myself as in, when you ask me like literally, who are you? I don't know. I know part of it. So as writers, I'm not a writer here. As writers, it's a challenge. From here, what are we telling? If we're saying we're telling African stories, what are African stories? Examples that I've heard in here, I've read who books. These books that we're saying we're reading, are those people are writers who we are complaining about right now. But we still go back and read those books. I feel like when we write stories because we want to be validated as writers. I write a book because I want to be titled as a writer, to say, in a certain year, Tiny wrote a book. And then I regard myself as a writer. I feel like until we start telling stories, African stories as they are, that's when we can say we are really telling African stories, not writing a project. Don't make writing a project because you want to fix a certain problem that we are in. Generally, youth unemployment rate that we're all complaining about. And when I see opportunity there, I'm going to say I'm going to be a writer and I can write, or because I can write and I know 10 people are going to buy my book. But today, here are books, local books. How many of us in here have one of these? I can bet, I think it's 2%. Banana local books. We don't have them. We don't read local stories. I have personal reasons why I don't read most books. It's because when you go read that book, I'm expressing myself like individualism. I'm not telling the story that I'm saying. This story should be known by generations to come. I'm writing about what I went through, not what should be known by generations to come. So I think this conference should be an introspection to say, what are we telling? Who are we writing for? And what is it that we want to achieve out of that project? Thank you.
We have one last question at the back.
All right, thanks for the opportunity, ma'am. By the way, listening to that from Botswana there, I heard him talk about how our background informs our writing. To start with, I just wanna relate back to the time I was at primary school. Besides the overall rubric of marking an essay for spelling, punctuation, coherence, whatsoever word, for the first time I got a tick for having written Kgosi Rabasotho. And that intrigued me to an extent that later on in life I wanted to find out how I managed to get that tick. And as I trace back, the tick was given for having written a proper Sesotho word. But when I went deep down researching about this word, I realized that it is actually a borrowed word. It is not a native Sesotho word. And for that matter, when we learn about our languages, it's very important that we don't learn it in isolation, but we've respected to other sister languages. Because in isiZulu, there is what is called Inkosi, and in Setswana there is Kgosi. But in our case, it is Morena, to be honest. So in that way or the other, it says that in as much as we can say we know a language, but we can go beyond and see how it is related to other languages. There is what we call borrowed words, and in our education system, we only learn borrowed words in relation to English or Afrikaans or whatsoever, not in relation to other African languages. Moreover, as Mr. from Botswana has been saying, like for instance, he said he didn't know the life like in Botswana because before 1885. Similar case in Lesotho. I'm not sure if what I'm going to say is more or less likely what happened to Botswana. In Lesotho, yes, we may say we are Basotho, but there are other ethnic groups besides Basotho in Lesotho who would perhaps make the majority. Let me take, for instance, when you go to a district called Mafting, there is a big football team there, Bantu FC. Its slogan goes, Amasuma Ndebele. And when you want to find out who are the Ndebeles, the very same Ndebeles in Zimbabwe are the very
in here Lesotho, it has, the Ndebele has been situated as Matebele in Lesotho. It is actually not, to an extent that to fit the what? The narrative of Basotho, the Ndebelers are treated as a clan, while in actual fact they are an ethnic group. These are the people who gave what, who were the last line of defense. They were deployed along the Caledon River, which you cross coming here, to protect Basotho against the Boers as they were taking their land. And today they are seen as what, a clan and not an ethnic group. So once again, like I said, I'm not sure if per se Lesotho derives from Basotho, and there are other ethnic groups in Lesotho. In a similar way, in Botswana, I suppose Botswana are an ethnic group, but
You just sum up and then.
all right. Let me, okay, I'll try to be short. But in short, I could say I relate more to what Ndate is saying, that we really dig deep into our roots in order to offer better in our writing. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much. I know that the conversation was beginning to be heated, and there's a lot that you'd like to talk among yourselves and with our panelists here. And I want to assure you that you will have that time, because this is a writer's mingle for a purpose. They're here to stay, right?
Yeah.
Because there is coffee and everything they want outside there. You can just sit by the table and get to know each other better, and even try to explore how we can collaborate and take this, is it a project? That just says something. This project further, such that in one decade to come, it becomes automatic, just as colonization is currently automatic. However, this just gives me 2 minutes to try and highlight everything that we talked about today. Even though somehow it feels like we're a bit out of the track of us as African writers, as you said, that we have to now think about what stories we want to tell in order for our people, for our communities to get back to the roots. But then, as I said initially, I liked the fact that they talked about other genres or other aspects other than only literature. Right now we can use education systems. We can use peace building systems in order to take back what has been taken from us. I would like to make a very sad example that you will all agree with. We all know how our young brothers who come from initiation schools trouble us among our communities. But that was not the initial plan of initiation school. What went wrong? How can we correct that by measuring the beautiful knowledge that we got from the colonization with our cultures? We had our systems that made whatever that they meant there stick deep into them, such that they could never do anything else apart from what they learned there. Whatever systems, whatever strategies that they are taught with, can we now bring in different knowledge? We cannot rely on education alone these days. Like we said, there is technology, and technology is working wonders. Then we want to walk away from technology. How really? I don't think so. So how can we take some of the important, useful knowledge that we got from westernization into our own culture, and then take the things that worked for us? The issue of Chakani, for instance. Our children know nothing. Girls know nothing about how they are supposed to go. They don't know why they don't have to eat protein at their adolescent age. And these were the things that were taught at Chakani. We don't have children these days in our villages. Where do we have them? In schools. Can we take Chakani into schools? Can we take computer science into the initiation schools? I'm just trying to say there's a lot of things that we can think about, things that will help us to eventually have our people progressing because we want to progress, we want to develop, we want to be a changed in a way. Not in the westernized way that they wanted, but in a certain, we want to see a certain development. We don't want to be the Basotho that was here ever, and then that becomes us forever. If we have to use their clothes, what can we do with this long sleeves that they put here? Anyway, we had our girls wear that. If we are okay with that, that's okay. So we can just manipulate their knowledge, their education, the way we want, as they manipulated us. Well, it's from me. You can go and sleep on it, think about it, and let us think about how we can collaborate. How can we stage this homework? How can we have our kids not watch Cocomelon, but watch this homework as cartoons? How can we write our Disuma as a book so that they read a very short Sumoya hour and learn what was taught through that? There's a lot we can talk about, ladies and gentlemen. So as I said, we will be together today and tomorrow. And today we can just mingle around, talk to each other, think of the ways we can collaborate further. And there's an announcement. I think Mingle would like to come and give us an announcement about what will happen tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, our panelists. Like Melanie has said, tomorrow we will be having our main conference. It is staged to happen at Masaru Tourist Center, just opposite Sparrows here. But due to the weather, which is beyond our control, we may have to shift the location to Limpopo University of Creative Technology, in Hall 9, if I'm not mistaken. So let us all meet there. The event starts at 9 o'clock a.m. sharp. Please be there, don't be late. Thank you. Thank you so much. Once again, a loud round of applause for our panelists. Thank you. We can all go now. We can start
tomorrow, Limpopo.
Stand, let's take